Good evening and welcome to the study session of the City Council of the City of Moreno Valley. I now call this meeting to order on March 10th at 6:02 p.m. Would any of my colleagues like to lead us in the pledge this afternoon? Councilmember Delgado will lead us in the pledge today.
Please stand and join me by placing your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Thank you, Councilmember Delgado. Next, item C, roll call. Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Bernard.
Here.
Councilmember Delgado.
Here, ma'am.
Councilmember Box Santa Cruz.
Here.
MPT Gonzalez.
Here.
And Mayor Cabrera.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, staff introductions, please.
Patty Rodriguez, City Clerk.
Sonia Gomez, Senior Deputy City Clerk.
Stephen Quintanilla, City Attorney.
Brian Mohan, City Manager.
Lana Jimenez, Assistant City Manager of Administration.
Sean Kelleher, Assistant City Manager Development.
Angelica Fraustilipo, Community Development Director.
Kyle Wersinski, Economic Development Director.
Harold Zamora, Assistant City Engineer, Public Works.
Claudia Torres, Special Events and Facilities Division Manager.
Robert Cardenas, Human Resources Director.
Sarah Mack, Chief of Police.
Thank you very much, team. Good to see you all. And next is item E, public comments on matters on the agenda only. And a friendly reminder that pursuant to the Brown Act, public comments shall be limited to only those items on this agenda. Each person shall be allowed a total of 3 minutes to comment on each item. The mayor may, however, reduce the total amount of time for all speakers to comment on any given item if there are any numerous requests to speak or comment on the same item that may hinder the City Council's ability to complete its business. Another friendly reminder that the city now offers language translation services through a free app called Wordly. The app automatically translates a variety of languages into English and vice versa. To use this service, please scan the QR code at the speaker's sign-up table. For the visually impaired, please use your earphones or earbuds to listen to the verbal translation. If you do not have any such listening devices, please let the city clerk know, and we will gladly let you borrow some for this meeting. Finally, in order to preserve the meeting decorum, council and staff will not respond during public comments. Now, item F, our business items. We do have 4 items on our study session agenda this evening, and the first one is the Moreno Valley College presentation, and we are joined here this evening by the president of Moreno Valley College, Dr. Rudy Besikoff. But before we bring you up, I just want to turn it over to staff to introduce the item, and then we will hear from you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. My privilege to state that we do have partnerships with Moreno Valley College, Moval Learns, the Promise program, I Make Innovation Centers, MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, and they're also a partner through our joint task force meeting that we have every other month. My pleasure to bring up Moreno Valley College President, Dr. Rudy Besikoff.
Mr. President, welcome.
Thank you, and appreciate the welcome this evening as well as the invitation. Just want to say that it's good to finally be able to line our calendars up. I know that your regular meeting and our Board of Trustees meetings, they actually start not only at the same time, but typically on the same day. So it's a pleasure to be here today. Let's see. Oh. Oops. Oh, hold on. There we go. Okay. So I just thinking about this and thinking about the city manager's introduction, I think the word partners is very relevant to the relationship that we have and that I've been fortunate to come into now going on 8 months of leadership at Moreno Valley College, something I'm very proud of. And I think about the fact that, for example, at the Burke Business Education Resource Center, it's incredible that we have a desk there and we're able to provide resources and information about Moreno Valley College, working in partnership with the city. Certainly, we're very humbled that the city chose to honor us with the award for the iMake Innovation Center. And just thinking about partnerships, I think back about, I think it was 6 weeks ago that Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez and Councilmember Bernard actually got to come to our campus and have a community-wide discussion, and made me realize that I probably want to keep my golf clubs in my closet as opposed to breaking them out. Sound like we'll have some skilled golfers in the area, which would make me an impediment to any recreation, I think. But certainly that. Also think back to tomorrow morning is in joint partnership with the two unified school districts. We're doing Student of the Month, and certainly remember running into Councilmember Delgado at the last one. And chances are, it just seems like if I'm out in the community supporting, one of the five of you is out there, or a member of the team here is out there supporting with us, and that's something I'm very grateful for. Full disclosure, this is my first time ever speaking to a city council, and you'd think I'd be nervous, to be honest, but quite honestly, I'm among friends, and I feel good about that. So just wanted to share that, and again, just really thank the city for its partnership with MVC. So looking at who we are and our North Star, or our why, really, as we look at our mission, vision, and values of the college, I think that really the 3 E's that are at the end, or the 3 E's and the S that are at the end, about our core mission. You know, we are about education. We are about empowering our students, our graduates, and the people I'm lucky enough to call my colleagues. Certainly, we exist in a space where our 3 goals that are core not only to our college but to our district center around equity in college access, equity in support for our students, and equity in success, seeing them as they move forward. Access certainly takes the form of being an open institution, but also one where college is not affordable is a sentence we don't utter. It's something that, and it's a constant awareness campaign really with our community, because often when you think about students in college, you think student loans, but the reality is for most of our students that just doesn't exist, especially with the supports that are available. As we continue along the way also, support is something that's critical, not just tutoring and academic support, but really promoting that sense of community within our college. I often tell people that the worst college experience I ever had was when I lived in Colorado. I took a Spanish class at night, and my experience consisted of pulling my car up to the building, going to my class, getting back in my car, and going home. And it was kind of a vacuum experience. Our students should not have that, and they have so many opportunities to be parts of community that I'll speak to a little bit later. And then finally, success. One of the greatest things that you can have as a college president is a conversation about graduation. Wow, it might be too crowded. That's a good thing. That's something that's important, and really seeing students onto their educational goals, attaining that associate's degree if it's for transfer to a 4-year institution, or with the many certificates that we offer that are honored by our industry partners, offering students opportunities for sustainable employment. And we really define sustainable employment as high wage, high skill, and high demand jobs. And that's really where we see things. And as we do so, we really focus on our students in a learner-centered environment. We strive to be inclusive. Again, we really want that sense of neighborliness. And I actually host a podcast, and one of the things I always say about Moreno Valley College is we have been the only higher education game in town since 1991. And of course, being responsible stewards not only of taxpayer funds, but also resources that were dedicated to sustainability on our campus. I mentioned our programs. You know, you look at our catalog and you look at our campus, and there's so much there and more that you might think. I referenced certificates that we offer 62 of them right now. And these are state-recognized certificates of achievement that carry value, that are fully accredited, and result in students gaining those 3, the high-wage, high-demand, high-skilled jobs, or give people the chance to advance in their chosen field. And those things are important. Also, within areas such as real estate, we offer licensure that comes with a lot of what we offer. We also offer associate's degrees, but I want to go down to the third point, which is our associate degree for transfer. And I want to take you back to actually my freshman year at the University of Colorado. And I had a friend, her name was Wendy. And we sat down at orientation, and I remember seeing her, and I was class of 1986, she was class of 1985 for high school. And, it's great to see her at orientation. And she looked really happy to be there. And then we kind of broke off and came back, and she was incredibly disappointed because a number of the classes she had taken at Community College of Denver were not going to be honored. With the associate's degrees for transfer, our graduates who take these programs have an ironclad guarantee that if they go to a CSU, those classes will count. And as we move forward as a statewide system of community college, something called the CalGETSI agreements, as well as iGETSI, those are things that provide similar reassurances for students that go to UCs, and that's something we're very proud of. We talk about college affordability. Our non-credit certificates, all non-credit instruction is free. And it's an open entry, open access program that students, no matter where they are in life, can enter programs and take courses. A number of them are in English as a second language. And then we also offer some in business and other areas. So we have an incredible catalog full of programs and opportunities. College affordability is a huge conversation we have. And those are things that are very important. Addressing any insecurity that might be out there. This is a staggering statistic that for every 5 students that are there, 4 are experiencing some sort of insecurity, be it housing, food, a number of different things. Childcare is another one that's actually right there that sometimes flies under the radar, but it's just as real. One of the things we do in providing those opportunities and those resources for students is doing it with a sense of community alongside. I think specifically of our Umoja program, which provides support and that sense of community, that it takes a village approach for our African American students. I think of the many students we have who have served our country, and the fact that our Veterans Resource Center, as I'll mention in a few minutes, is something that has really shown to be successful. CalWorks is a program that supports student parents. And so we have a number of those areas of community where students receive support that doesn't just come in the form of something being handed to them, but a sense of belonging, and that's something that's very important. Food insecurity, of course, is at the top of the list, and through resources we have secured through grants and a number of privately funded sources each year through the statewide budget, we've been able to maintain Monty's Market, and with that, we are able to address not only food insecurity, but also clothing insecurity. And one of the things I'm proud of is that what's often on the hangers might be things people could wear to job interviews down the road. So really just kind of thinking big picture, and really proud of my campus because a lot of them contribute to the success of our students, not just through the great work they do, but their own personal resources. And I think that's something that's great. Also, along the way, something that we've also addressed in terms of student wellness is mental health and wellness. And I'm so proud to say that a lot of the work that we do through our wellness center is very cutting edge. Had an extended conversation with our director of that program, Dr. Lynette Sullivan, a few weeks ago. And it was amazing to learn that promoting mental health and wellness, it was not about necessarily 2 people on opposite sides of a desk. It's about our programs actually taking mental health and taking the conversation around it and busting the stigma around it through a lot of activities on campus. And if you walk around our campus, if you've ever come, and of course we're an open campus and community, you're always welcome. But one of the things you'll see on the quad is we've got like kind of a Wheel of Fortune wheel. That's our health and wellness club. And can you imagine mental health and wellness actually being a student club and that handled on that level of positivity? Well, that's what goes on at MVC, and that's something that's great. As we continue to move forward, we have resources within the community to address housing insecurities. But the big thing we are doing as we move forward is we're preparing to make another bid to the state to get funding for student housing. And that's something we're looking at. And the design that we have as we move forward, if granted, would actually set up a situation with 280 beds for our students. And that's something we're excited about. And certainly, as along the way, again, we want to get rid of the sentence, college is expensive. We don't want that to be part of the way people in Moreno Valley and in Paris see higher education. So we've done a lot of work, and a lot of things have been happening, and we've been fortunate to receive some recognition. Hispanic Outlook magazine recognized us among the top 50 colleges, not just community colleges nationally. That's something we're very proud of. Wallet Hub ranked us number 11 overall nationally in terms of affordability, but this is the one I'm really proud of. Number 5 in the country in terms of student outcomes. And student outcomes is defined as the amount of student debt that students leave with, and then also the difference, the median difference between a high school graduate's wages and a community college graduate's wages. We're number 5 nationally in that area, and it's something I'm very proud of. Along the way, we really want to reach our community of students who are already in the workplace. And a program where we are taking the lead statewide is CPL, Credit for Prior Learning. Arlene Serrato at my college, she's a transcript evaluator. She's been at the head of that effort. And when there are conversations about that statewide, she's up front and center presenting. And she is leading the state. And that's something, not only she, but our faculty at the Ben Clark Training Center, as well as our business faculty, we're in the forefront, and that's something that's great. Again, my gratitude to the City of Moreno Valley for recognizing our iMake Innovation Center this past year. There is an independent organization in the state led by former State Chancellor Eloy Oakley called the College Futures Foundation. This group did a study of all 116 community colleges, and in terms of affordability, ranked us number 12, and in the Inland Empire, number 1. And that's something we're also very proud of. I mentioned before that we want MVC to always be a hub for those who have served our country. And so it was great to see that in California, Military Times ranked us number 7 among all colleges, not just community colleges, but colleges, and number 11 nationally. And then finally, we certainly share and celebrate the achievement of MVUSD for earning the Golden Bell Award for its work with dual enrollment. And that was a result of a partnership with us. And as we move forward, we're also equally proud of our relationship with Valverde Unified School District. So some things are happening, and hopefully I think I've shown that some people are taking notice, which is great. So just to share a couple things about kind of methodology, if you will. I know in city leadership you have approaches to doing things, and I wanted to share ours a little bit. One movement nationally in terms of redesigning colleges and addressing issues of students taking 90 units to complete a 60-unit degree, taking years and years for what could be a 2-year degree, or in the case of a part-time student, a 3-year degree. One of the designs that has come out nationally that Moreno Valley College has embraced, not only the ideas of it, but implementation, are the 4 pillars of guided pathways. Making the pathways clear for students. I go back to my experience at the University of Colorado. I'm waiting to get something in the mail from them. I did have a good experience there. But I remember in my orientation, they said, here's your 450-page catalog, learn it, read it, this is your contract with us. That was my orientation. Community college, what we look to do is clarify the path for students. Essentially, we take all those majors and we put them in 9 different pathways, and we kind of engage students Socratically and get them to think about and play in the sandbox of designing their own future. We always strive to help students get on the path, have clear schedules, have opportunities for students. And then once they get on the path, support them, not only with tutoring and all of the supports I mentioned, but also being cognizant of the fact that for everyone, education doesn't necessarily have to only begin in August or September. We offer a number of late start classes, and I think one of the cool nicknames I've heard at Moreno Valley College is Grade 8. Which means in the second half of the semester, we roll out a whole schedule of classes. In this case, we're going to have over 60 courses available starting in in April. And I think that's something that's exciting. And then along the way, ensuring learning, continuing that conversation about professional development and growth that keeps our educators engaged. and empowered, and then also just using data to see how well we're doing and look at where we can do better. On the right side of this presentation, you see a number of different things where we measure ourselves. The two that I'd like to point to that we're really focused on are this. Number one, persistence. Moreno Valley College has been doing a great job with promoting enrollments. We're probably going to go from being about 20% of our district's enrollment by the end of this year to be accounting for 24.5%. So we're getting people in the door, and that's good, but we need to keep them. We need to talk to them about taking a first semester and turning it into a second semester, or taking that second semester and turning it into a certificate or a degree. That's really where the persistence discussion begins. And also, just as all of you, I imagine traffic comes up sometimes in the course of this meeting, right? And maybe bottlenecks and gridlock. Well, one thing we've identified as a potential bottleneck for students is that hurdle of math. And the fact that the more students put off their math requirements, the less likely they are to graduate. We want to get them excited. And yes, even a linguist can say get excited about math. But we want to do that and get them through their math and English requirements. And this summer, we're actually going to be launching some boot camps to kind of help our community do so. So those are a lot of the things we're doing in terms of approach that we're very proud of. Coming this year, of course, we're going to be celebrating our students with graduation on Friday, June 12th. And as you can see, our awards, last year we awarded 1,488 diplomas to our students, which is great. And a third of those were those guaranteed degrees for transfer. Also, getting students to either gain jobs or advance in the workforce, we awarded 769 certificates. So my rough math puts us at around 2,250, which is pretty good for a graduation. Want to highlight a lot of the partnerships that have been mentioned. The College Promise is something that really, again, for those who graduate from an area high school, the admission, not only the access to admission that they have, but also the access to resources. College Corps is a program that promotes volunteer service work, but thanks to this program, it's only volunteer as name, as students can actually be paid for the work they're doing. Also, paid apprenticeships is something that we're looking at. And of course, I want to express gratitude to the city for the incredible partnership that comes with MoVal Learns. As you can see here, I just wanted to highlight some of the areas where we are doing apprenticeships. Although Norco College is the college in our 3-college district that offers construction, we do offer apprenticeship in the construction trades because obviously that is a growing and flourishing industry here. Cybersecurity, dental assisting, and then IT cybersecurity. Those are some other areas. We're doing quite a bit, really, to get our students well enrolled into the workplace and experiencing everything. The future ahead as our college continues to grow is something where we're looking at a facilities expansion and improvement. I had already mentioned our efforts to eventually obtain student housing, and we look forward to that. But in about 3 years, hopefully, we look forward to cutting the ribbon and inviting all of you as we open our Library Learning and Resource Center. And one domino effect of that is that we'll be taking our current library space and dedicating it to fine arts, really having music and theater and dance programs that really make us that four-dimensional comprehensive college. And that's something that we're looking forward to. Some of you were kind enough to attend the ribbon cutting, our organic chemistry lab, which now means that students in Moreno Valley do not have to go to Riverside to take those courses in STEM, and that's something we're very happy about. Also, because of the way that we have been managing our facility space in terms of assignable square footage and honoring those requirements, we've actually improved our score to put ourselves in line, hopefully, for a STEM building that will hopefully happen sooner than later. And then finally, with some exciting news that I'll be breaking in just a moment, we are expanding our Ben Clark Training Center. One of our buildings that's also in our queue is Building 2A, which will support our emergency management programs. And then also we have a facility 2B that I'll be talking about in just a second. And so as you can see on this front, we're looking at it really extending a lot of things. And then finally, in that concept of a comprehensive four-dimensional college, we are looking at on the MoVal campus, moving toward the building of an athletics field. We already have women's flag football that's going. I want to see soccer going as well, and I know that there's some appetite for volleyball, and we want to actually have recognized athletics rather than student sports clubs, and that's something we're very excited about. So in terms of our facilities, as we grow, we're also growing in terms of our thoughts and the way our campus looks. I referenced the Ben Clark Training Center. This is a layout of it. The new building that we're looking at is 19,100 square feet. And you'll see that we are receiving funding through Measure CC, and we're anticipating completion by summer of 2029. But where I really would like to go is talk about a lot of the work that is going out there with our School of Public Safety. Already, and I did see somebody from CAL FIRE here today, one of the requests we've been getting is please open more sections. We need more students going in and studying, and have had similar requests in law enforcement and emergency services. I'll just share this anecdotally with you. Let's see, back in November and December, I attended the graduation for our EMTs, for paramedics, and then also for our fighter fighters. And it was the only time I ever heard the keynote speaker at the graduation say, if you're looking for a job, please see me after the ceremony, we're hiring. That's what the demand is like. And I see our partner over there with CAL FIRE nodding yes as I say that. And that's something that's happening. But in addition to that, within our programming with those three areas, we also have Homeland Security, where we also have we're building out our curriculum. So now this is kind of the big buildup, and you can get your phones ready. We'll scan a QR code. We are actually coming this fall, and we're about 70% full already in terms of students. We are going to be launching our bachelor's program, 4-year degree at a 2-year college. It's awesome. Bachelor's program in emergency management. And the incredible thing about it is at $46 a unit, this essentially means that students can obtain a bachelor's degree for less than $10,000. Assuming they don't have any aid or scholarships or anything like that. And that's something that is very exciting. And I mentioned the second building that's coming out there, which would be the 2B building. Essentially what we've done is we've walked our way and just working with Dean Phil Rawlings and the department chair and some of the senior faculty, we've walked through the catalog and looked at all the courses, not just in terms of industry-specific courses, but the courses that are related toward getting that bachelor's degree, okay? Areas such as theater, for example, and looking at how this building 2B can be purposed to really fit the needs of those students so that they have that extremely well-rounded bachelor's degree that the rest of the state will hopefully be taking notes on. So I will leave this up here another second or two if anybody wants to scan the QR code, and I know it's also available within your board pack, or excuse me, city council packet. There we go. Had to change a little muscle memory there. So anyway, we are a community that really serves a diverse population of students. But as we move forward, we want to strive to serve students in a manner that is more reflective of the Moreno Valley population. Specifically, we are working to increase our outreach within the African American community in Moreno Valley. Also, if you look at our age group, we still only about 35% of our students are over 25. And as we move forward, we really want to have a renewed focus. Of course, we honor our partnerships with our unified school districts, but we really want to shift our focus as well to include the 20 to 25 student as well as students over 25. And one of the other misconceptions along with college is expensive is that college should be full-time. And really, if we are going to endeavor to impact the lives of adult learners, we have to offer a schedule that tells them it's okay to be a part-time student. It's okay to finish in 3 or 4 years. Just stay on your pathway, and we're here to support you. And that's a message that we really want to send out there in stereo. We have an incredible community of employees. As you can see, we have over 375 faculty, both full-time and part-time. Often at graduation, one thing I have never heard as a vice president, president, or dean is I've never heard a graduating student say, I'd like to thank my president. No, they don't say that. And if you sign up for the glory, you're going to be disappointed. But what they often do say, of course, in addition to thanking their professors, is they thank those staff members, those classified professionals who really interact with them on a daily basis and keep in touch with them. And I think that's something that's important. For those of you who are interested in funds, our annual budget is at about $81 million. $25 million of that is one-time grants or categorical funds that we receive. And that's something where I guess I would ask those of you who serve in office, as you're thinking about the budgets, when you have the January release up to the May revise, if there are opportunities for us to talk about how to better serve the community on an educational front, please know my door is always open. So with that, I'll go ahead and close my presentation. You always finish by talking about money and asking. But with that, I'll go ahead and stop and see if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, President Besikoff. Appreciate the presentation there, very thorough and a lot of good information there. So really appreciate it. We'll go ahead and bring it back up to the dais to my colleagues for comments, questions. Councilmember Delgado.
Great presentation, sir,
Thank
and
you.
thank you very much for coming and addressing our city about the Moreno Valley College. But non-accredited free courses, give me you have another example of those?
Sure. Actually, they are accredited. They're non-credit, meaning that in terms of the hours counting off your financial aid, they don't. And also the per hour tuition is zero. So that's what that is. Mainly, this is an area where we're looking to grow and expand. And we want to have, especially in our career education areas, for a lot of our career courses, we want to mirror those courses with non-credit sections so that students can take them and essentially not generate units that would count against their financial aid. And again, it's something that where cost is not a barrier.
I think he's asking for the titles of the type of courses.
Oh, the titles?
Like Excel, she was just telling Excel.
Yes, Excel, Office. English as a second language is kind of one of our primary ones, but this is an area of growth for our college where we're going to continue to have more sections in the future in different areas.
Thank you, sir. And I've been on city council for 4+ years, and you run into people all the time that went through the Moreno Valley College that are already at their master's or have achieved a bachelor's. So thank you very much for what you guys do.
Thank you.
Dr. Besikoff, are you going to be holding your graduation somewhere else now?
No, we will be holding graduation on campus.
On
It'll
campus.
be on June 12th. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Just one or two things here. You answered a lot of the questions I was going to ask in your presentation. Very excited to see, the future plans for expansion of existing programs. The bachelor's degree coming this fall is a huge deal, and just being recognized by all these organizations really highlights that. So one of the questions I did want to ask about is if there's anything that you could share in regards to expanding beyond what's happening already at Ben Clark, in regards to healthcare, things like nursing programs or anything else within the medical field. I know they have programs at RCC in Riverside, but are there any plans or any way that we can assist? Because we see the demand that the market is asking for, but are there any plans for bringing any of those programs to MVC?
So at Moreno Valley College, our medical assisting programs and then also our dental programs, and one of our next frontiers we're looking at for a bachelor's degree is actually in dental assisting. That's something that we're looking at. I think really just working together to create more opportunities on the apprenticeship, internship, and job placement front. I think that's something that's very important. Having said that, one of the things I've come to appreciate here in this city is that for any career and technical education program that receives Perkins federal funding, there's a requirement that those disciplines of study have advisory boards made up of faculty and other colleges as well as industry professionals. And whereas one of the things that really has impressed me about MVC is how full those advisory groups are with people in the field and people in industry. And I guess my one ask would be to continue the awareness about it and especially just look for places where there may be opportunities for students to practice as they learn. And also be just in the reality of 2026. I know when I went to school, internships were, pro bono, or, you know, I almost felt like I had to pay them, you know, but the reality we're in now, the paid internship, the paid apprenticeship, that's something that's, you know, just talking about the need of that with potential employers is critical.
100% agree with you, and that was the second part of that question is, you know, if there's anything else that we can do, either, you know, as elected officials or even at the staff level. I know you work very closely with staff and they do an amazing job with the partnerships that we have established, but, you know, there's Kaiser, of course, there's RUHS, of course, which have plans for future expansions, but then there's also some new you know, providers that'll be coming in later this year, like Loma Linda Medical Clinic, RadNet, Rancho Medical Clinic that opened up not that long ago. So new opportunities, especially Loma Linda, when we talk about serving our veterans, making sure that they get that care. Loma Linda really, you know, serves a large part of that demographic. So any way that we can help, please don't hesitate, you know, making phone calls, sending letters of support, submitting joint applications for grant funding, whatever that may be. You know that you have our support on that. And then also beyond that, so, you know, some of us sit on different boards and commissions, be it here regionally or even at the state level, like the League of California Cities, for example, that is very active in advocacy and legislative advocacy, going up to Sacramento, meeting with the legislators, proposing or supporting bills and legislation. So I also want to extend that opportunity. Every April, the league goes up for the Legislative Day of Action every single year. We go up to the swing space in the Capitol, meet with legislators, anything we could help with there as well. Please don't hesitate to ask, and we'd love to support you on those efforts.
Thank you, Mayor Cabrera.
Look to my colleagues to see if there are any further questions or comments.
Great job, sir.
Okay.
Thank you
Great
very
job.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate the
Appreciate it.
partnership.
Yes, sir. And next, we will look for any public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on this item?
We do, Mayor. Christopher Baca.
Good evening.
Good evening. I was wondering, the development agreement with Highland Fairview indicated that he was going to be funding the college for logistic studies. The last I recall was Norco had a program. I'm not sure if Moreno Valley has the program, but that should be something that should be funded by per agreement by the WLC. And I'm just wondering, my question is, if there are, I see there are courses, but I'm not sure if they're for Norco or for Moreno Valley, under business and logistics and chain, the chain thing. So my question is, has there been any funding by Highland Fairview? Will there be any funding? Is anybody looking into holding the WLC or the development agreement, holding them to their commitments? And if that's something that Mr. is it the Chancellor or the President can address, if that's something in the near future, or is it something that just went out the way and nobody's going to consider that anymore, or hold them up to the agreement with the WLC for the supply chain logistics and so forth that was supposed to be funded? Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes all of public comments for this item.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So we'll go ahead and conclude the first item, and we'll transition to our second item, which is going to be presented by our Community Development Director, Angelica Frausto Lupo. And so at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to our staff.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. So first off, I'd like to mention that actually Public Works Director Melissa Walker is not here with us tonight. She's not able to make it. And so we do have Harold Zamora, who is our Engineering Division Manager, Assistant City Engineer, who will be stepping in for her. And the outline for tonight's presentation is we'll go over the pre-development process, the entitlement process, building and construction, public works, business license, economic development, and then we will finish with some Q&A. So through this presentation, we'll walk you through the development process. We hope to clarify some misconceptions that are often heard when discussing development. First, I'd like to start by highlighting a few key points: that the city does not develop property. Property owners develop their property. Similarly, the city doesn't build housing. Cities must plan for housing. And also another key point that I hope that you keep in mind throughout the presentation is that the City of Moreno Valley values, or one of our core values, is customer service. And we take pride in being responsive, and we have very aggressive turnaround times. And so when applicants submit applications, we actually have goals that we try to meet and turn around the review to them. So staff reviews and processes applications. Again, we don't, and we can't control applicants or developers on how quickly they turn around or resubmit when we have comments. Oftentimes, applicants will not address corrections that we've identified, and so that delays, that may cause some delays. And just as a quick example, and one example that I often like to give is that, because we can't control others, one of the things that often happens is that developers think that they're saving money by perhaps not hiring an architect, for example. If I'm a property owner and I want to develop a restaurant, I might want to save money by hiring kind of a general contractor rather than someone who specializes in restaurants and kitchens. That's just one example that may cause some delays. Unfortunately, applicant, developer, property owner may think that they're trying to save money, but in the end, often the delays will cost them more time and money. So with that in mind, we'll get right into it. So the pre-development process, this includes oftentimes site selection. So where the property owner will start looking for a site, they might have a few sites in mind, we'll have to verify zoning. I do want to emphasize here that the city's economic development department can assist with site selection. And a little bit later in the presentation, we will hear from Kyle Warsinski, our Economic Development Director, who will walk you through the process and give an example of a project. So property owners, developers during this process are often doing their market studies, they're doing their feasibility studies, they're looking at various sites, et cetera. The next item here is property owner rights. So property owners have rights to develop their site. And so if it's allowed by the zoning, if it's consistent with the general plan, then they have the right to look into developing their property. And then the city offers a pre-application preliminary review, and we very often times highly recommend that applicants take advantage of this process. During this review, we provide detailed comments on what they can expect during the actual entitlement process, and we route the pre-application to our internal and external departments, divisions, and partner agencies. And this provides information to the applicant on what they can expect during the process, and actually helps them save time for when they're ready to go. So next we'll jump right into the entitlement process and the approvals. And I'll start with, what is entitlement? An entitlement is securing the planning approvals to develop the land. Staff analyzes the project against the local policies and codes, as well as applicable state laws. And the types of applications that we might receive are conditional use permits, specific plans, zone changes, plot plans. And so the steps for the entitlement process is a formal application is submitted, the application is reviewed by staff, And the development review team includes planning, building, economic development, fire, land development, parks, MVU, special districts, and some of our partner agencies would include EMWD as an example. So again, when we receive an application, the plans are routed to the different divisions, and we meet as a group. Then we meet with the applicant to go over what the comments may be, and then formal comments are submitted to the applicant. Oftentimes on the first review, there may be quite a long list of comments, and here it goes back to the point on we can't control how quickly the plans will be resubmitted or whether they will address all the comments, and again, sometimes that causes the delays. Meanwhile, staff is also reviewing for compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, as well as tribal consultation is often began in the process. And staff will always encourage the applicant to do some community outreach. We want the applicant to go out and talk about their project and gain the support early on, which will help their process make it a little bit easier for them, and really just to gain the support of the community. Let's see if I've missed anything here. Okay. And so what are the specifically now the approval process? There's really two kinds, and one is a discretionary and one is an administrative or ministerial. The discretionary approval is taking the project before the Planning Commission, and that is a public hearing that is going to be based the Planning Commission will get a recommendation from staff. Approvals will be based on findings, and oftentimes the project will have conditions of approval. And the conditions of approval are going to detail requirements for the project, for implementing the project. During a ministerial approval, the project will be approved at the staff level, and during the ministerial approvals, it's going to be based on primarily on are they meeting the objective standards that are listed in the code. Oh, sorry. I should have mentioned earlier that I did have City Attorney Steve Quintanilla on standby if he wanted to mention anything regarding vested rights. And just really quickly, vested rights really is when a project is approved, basically what it means is that the applicant then now has the right to develop the project per the approvals. City Attorney, anything?
Yeah, so vested rights means exactly what our Community Development Director just mentioned. And there's another aspect of vested rights, and that pertains to which rules, regulations apply to a particular project. So the general rule is that if a developer has a building permit, they have to comply with the rules and regulations in place at the time the building permit was issued. However, if we have a vested tentative map, it's a particular type of map that gives vested rights to proceed with the development pursuant to the rules and regulations in place at the time they submitted a complete application for the vested tentative map. So that moves the standards and rules back earlier. So we can't change the rules if they submitted a vested tentative map and they come 6 months later and we change the general plan on them. We're limited to applying those rules. With development agreements can even push those vested rights back further. If we approved a development agreement, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, we can only apply those rules and regulations in place at the time we executed that development agreement 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. The other type of vested rights we deal with now are the ones we know as Senate Bill 330 preliminary applications. So now if we have a project that involves housing and a developer comes in and submits this preliminary application, and then they come back, year or 2 years later, we can't change the rules and regulations on them, including our development impact fees. So with SB 330, it actually freezes the amount of development impact fees we can impose. So anytime we have a project that's brought forward to the council, what staff has to do is determine which rules, regulations, ordinances, development standards, zoning can we apply to that project. And all of it's going to depend on what type of entitlement they're applying for or seeking, or what sort of entitlement they have in place. So those are the two meanings of vested rights. One is which determines what rules and regulations we apply to that particular project, and another set of vested rights involves a situation where they already have permits and they have a project that's been approved, and we can't make any changes after those permits or even after they break ground on them. That's what vested rights is all about.
Thank you, City Attorney. So moving on to the building permitting and construction. So after the entitlement or the project is approved, the applicant will then submit to building plan check. So in other words, that's when they submit their construction plans for review to ensure compliance with state and local codes. Additionally, during this phase, the applicant will begin site preparation, grading, installation of necessary infrastructure. And in a little bit, I will pass it over to Mr. Harold Zamora for a little more detail on the public works process. But before we go there, I will finish with the building and permitting. So the steps on during this phase is first the plan review, as mentioned. Plans are submitted to ensure that they are complying with the California Building Code and any local codes that we may have here in the city. City staff does verify contractors' licenses to ensure that they have the proper licenses and credentials. Once the plans are approved, then we move into permit issuance, and that is gives the basically the green light to begin construction. And during the construction, inspections are conducted, again, to ensure that the project is being built per the approved plans. And sometimes here's where we may see some delays because the contractor or the property owner has a change of heart and wants to change the plans while they're out in the field. And so when the inspector goes out and says, well, this is not what was approved, now you got to go back and resubmit plans. And so, sometimes the property owner, may have a change of heart. It's really not the best thing to do, especially not while out in the field and we're already having we already have approved plans. So once the project is constructed, then we issue a certificate of occupancy. I mentioned, sometimes changes out in the field, and so if there are changes out in the field, then we would issue a stop work notice. During the building process, we are also ensuring that projects are constructed in compliance with the Americans with Disability Act. And during our entire entitlement and building and permitting process, economic development team works closely with planners and the building team to ensure that projects are moving smoothly. We offer check-ins either on a weekly or or biweekly basis. Again, we're here to help, and so we want to ensure that projects get done, and we want to ensure that projects are done on a timely basis. And at this point, I will go ahead and pass it over to Mr. Harold Zamora.
Do I need it? Okay. So good evening. As Angelica said, as far as the development process, Public Works has 4 touch points that are involved during the process. The first one is in land development, and they serve as kind of the intake for our engineering department, and their primary responsibility is just to make sure that the developer and their engineer is designing to the current engineering standards and practices. We also make sure that they're putting in the proper infrastructure. For the development process, it's real important as far as what type of project they're putting in and the location, That's going to determine what type of infrastructure goes in place, whether it be utilities, storm drains, traffic signals. All that's determined in the land development section. We also take a look and see and make sure they're adhering to any state and federal regulations. One of the big ones and one of the ones that are most confusing is stormwater versus floodwaters. One easy way is I always share is stormwaters is the first 20-minute storm event. That's what you can consider stormwater that's on site. Floodwaters is anything beyond those 20 minutes is a good rule of thumb. That's more of a storm drain, flood control issue. So that's something easy to decipher between the two. Depending on the actual development and size and type, our transportation department gets involved. And that section, their primary focus is reviewing the traffic studies. If it warrants a traffic study, usually the ones that will warrant those are the large commercial developments or large residential developments. So our transportation department reviews the traffic studies and just ensures that they're adhering to all the conditions that we provided at the start with planning. They also look at the road configuration and just ensure that it's being built to our general plan. And then also they look at whether or not their traffic control meets our requirements during construction. So they're involved in making sure that they provide us adequate traffic control during construction so it has the least impact on the residents when they're doing their actual construction. Then once everything's approved, plans, and everything is signed by not just the city, but also by outside agencies, then we kind of go into the construction permit phase. Now, this is another area where people tend to get a little confused with what Angelica spoke about as far as construction and permit phase on site. We handle public right-of-way. The only on-site permitting that engineering does is the grading permits. So sometimes people will come to engineering and say, how come you're not looking at the building and looking at, you know, certain clearances? And that's when we refer them to our building and safety department. So although we're named very similar, we handle two very separate aspects of the job. One's on-site, which is Angelica's group, and ours is off-site public right-of-way. And then lastly is if that development is located within one of our Moreno Valley electric utility service areas, then we get our department involved in providing the necessary services for them and then just conditioning them with the proper infrastructure that's required for their development. And then, like I mentioned to you before, depending on the type of project, if it's a really large project, some of the ones that you're seeing on the east end, those require a lot of coordination with outside agencies. And so the engineering department kind of helps the developer and the engineer because although our development process is actually very streamlined, it is sometimes difficult if you've never gone through it. So we kind of help them along through the process. So depending on what it is that they're needing, so for example, if the service area is not within our Moreno Valley utility, then we put them in contact with SCE. You know, we talk to them, we try to get ahead of it because we know SCE has certain requirements that we're not aware of or not in control of. So we want them to touch with them early, you know, talk to them early, and that way it doesn't affect their development. Also, one thing to note, as you are well aware, we don't have water and sewer service. A lot of people think we do, and we don't, but we do help put them in the right, you know, in contact with the right people, whether it's Eastern Municipal Water District or Box Springs. So we serve kind of as a facilitator for that as well. And then one big aspect that I touched on earlier is flood control district. Flood control district has a master plan for the entire Moreno Valley area. So sometimes, like I mentioned to you before, when you see a storm drain coming in, it's difficult to know whether it's a local facility or whether it's a flood control district facility. The rule of thumb, again, is kind of the height of this counter here. Anything larger, pipe size, higher than this, that would be a flood control district facility. Anything smaller is a city facility. I like to use illustrations. It's easy for me. And then lastly, you know, sometimes there's these large developments that do touch with like our WRCOG agencies, the large regional size agencies, RCTC, and sometimes there's funds available through that. So we put them in contact with them as well. so they can work with them to try to see if there's any funds available for their development. And with that, I'll pass it back to Angelica.
Thank you, Harold. And so part of our process is ensuring that anyone doing business in the city has an active business license. So whether it's a contractor or property owners now built a commercial building, ensuring that the tenants have business licenses. So a business license is required for all businesses in the city, whether it's a commercial business, a home-based business, a nonprofit, or religious organization. Everyone must obtain a business license, and the fees will vary depending on the type of business. And so next, I did mention earlier that we did have Kyle Warsinski, our Economic Development Director, to walk you through some of what's offered through economic development and give a case study.
Thank you, Angelica. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're going to go over a couple key items that economic development focuses on with the land development approval process. So amongst many things that we focus on in economic development, one of the primary roles is to focus on business attraction. That's bringing in new businesses, stores, employers, investors, with the goal of getting them into that approval process that both Harold and Angelica eloquently described. Another thing that we do is we focus on business retention and expansion. Those are our existing businesses that may be seeking expansion at their current location. They may be looking to relocate to another location within the city of Moreno Valley, or they may be looking to potentially look at a second, third, fourth location for their business enterprise. As Angelica alluded to, we provide site selection assistance for both of those attraction and retention efforts. So if they're looking for an existing suite, we can help them find what's on the market today for lease or for sale. If it's the attraction, if it's developers that are looking at a new site, we often pitch them sites that are available. We know who the brokers are. We connect them with that so that it eases their ability to review what's available in the city and to make those direct contacts versus jumping on the internet and trying to find those themselves. Lastly, and Angelica touched on this, and I appreciate that, is we do offer personal liaisons through economic development to help support businesses, developers, and existing businesses through that approval process. The idea is to help sometimes translate what planning, public works say. They often operate in very technical terms. Business owners sometimes don't understand those, and we kind of fill in to help them understand what they're trying to say, because they're not doing something wrong, they just don't understand what they don't know. And so we try to help them with that. Ultimately, our goal is to get them through that approval process with their doors open as fast as possible. So certain things that affect development within the city. I often use this five-tiered wheel to demonstrate what our role is as the city of Moreno Valley in the development process. So we are number one. This includes city economic development, public works, planning. Every department, every touch point with the city is reflective in the business community. Are we business friendly? Are we pro-growth? Those things factor into these investors' decisions to go through this land entitlement process. Number two on the wheel, residents. Those equate to customers or potential employees for these businesses. So a company's not going to come in and look at somewhere where there's not going to be someone to shop or to utilize that service. Third, those businesses I just alluded to, they want to come into an area that is thriving, that is growing, that is not stagnant, that has customers for them to actually make money, right? Fourth, Angelica alluded to this, is the city does not build anything beyond public improvements. Once in a while, we'll build city halls or police stations or rec centers and parks, right? But beyond that, in streets and signals, the development community, private developers are the ones that you see embarking on investments in the community and going vertical with shopping centers, residential projects, et cetera. And so we have to be able to attract those developers and maintain ongoing relationships with them in order to entice them to the table to invest and develop within the city. Lastly, and unfortunately, one beyond our control is external market forces. That one, you can think of interest rates, tariffs, construction costs, inflation, consumer sentiment, consumer spending patterns. All those things outside of our control affect the development process. And so 1 through 4 on that wheel can all be in perfect alignment. But if construction cost on lumber goes up tomorrow by 200, 300%, you better believe that developer is going to look at their pro forma closer and to see if they have additional budget to eat those increased costs, or if they go, hey, we're going to pause for a little bit and see if these prices come back down into the realm where we're able to pencil our project. So hopefully that provides some insight into the factors on what equates into development and works on that. So Angelica alluded to a case example that we're going to provide, and it's really how economic development, community development, public works works together. And so this corner, believe it or not, was the corner of Day and Eucalyptus. There was a concrete batch plant there for many years. Likely there was not much around it when it was constructed and operated for those years. Eventually, things move forward, general plan and zoning changes, and we find ourselves with a what we call a legal non-conforming use on a major commercial corridor. Not great for the business. They're likely getting complaints from neighbors, complaints from people driving down that street. Not all types of businesses want to be right next to a concrete batch plant. I don't blame them. And so what we do is we jump into that equation and say, hey, Robertsons, can we help you find another location in an industrial zone where you are permitted? Mind you, when you have these examples, that company also cannot expand because they're legal to stay there, but they do not conform with the land use and the zoning on the property. And so if they want to do anything new, they want to expand and grow their business, they're prohibited from doing so at that location. What we do is we step up and help them find additional sites. So they look at those sites. Remind you, we don't build it, so they have to actually build it. They find a new site, they either lease that or they purchase it, and then they move their business location to the new site. What that leaves us with is this amazing picture. I don't know if anyone else in the room gets super excited when they see dirt, but that excites me. Why? Because dirt is opportunity to an economic developer. This is something that we have an ability to work on and create a higher and better use other than a batch plant in a commercial zone. So we get to work on aggressive marketing to find tenants, find a developer, and to get a project together that will hopefully submit to Angelica's group in planning for that land entitlement approval. Coincidentally, on this one, the whole project was pre-leased at 86% of the project was pre-leased before they started construction. That demonstrates a great relationship between the city of Moreno Valley and these investors that are looking to develop properties in the city. You don't see that too often, but this case definitely showed that. So once we get the tenants in there, the developer feels comfortable with the mix of the buildings, they go ahead and submit to planning and public works for those land use approvals. Once those land use approvals that Angelica described are approved, they now have their entitlements, those rights to build. They proceed with the plan check that Angelica described through building and safety. Then they get under construction. Once the project completes construction, passes their final permit inspections, businesses open and provide services, employment opportunities, goods for our residents to buy or to find a job opportunity. So that's a quick case example of kind of how we all work together in development services here at the city. And with that, I think we're open to questions, and I will give the clicker back to Angelica. Thank you.
And Mayor, Council, just before questions, I'd just like to add a few different pieces of information that weren't discussed. So the city website does have a plan check turnaround comparison. So we've actually compared to our peers within the Inland Empire. So if you go to moval.org, EDD, you'll actually then type in plan check turnaround HTML, and you'll actually see the comparison. And it actually shows that we can save developers up to 2.1 weeks when it comes to the first review, as well as a number of hours related to that first review, and subsequent reviews as well. We also have a time and materials program. So if the development meets a certain criteria for the larger developments, we can actually enroll the developer into a time and material program in which they do an initial deposit of $100,000, and all of their hours that are worked within the development team is then charged to that particular deposit, and it basically fast tracks the city's ability to not have to wait for deposits and so forth, and the back and forth with the developer. Well, we also have a strike team between economic development and community development, in which that team is provided to developers. That's also on our website. So just want to make sure I provided that additional information, as it wasn't in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, team. Appreciate the very thorough report there as well. We'll go ahead and bring it back up to the dais before we go to public comment, and we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez.
I have a couple of questions. I'll only ask one, and this is for Kyle. You'd give us. I know you gave the case study of the quarter, and I was actually on the planning commission when approved that project a few years back. Compare the quarter and how it was pre-leased, right, with the various developers and the tenants versus the town center, right, Alessandra and Nason. It probably has to do with also the economic factors in 2026 versus, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Very good question. Thank you for me to add my 2 cents and opinion on it. We're obviously working very closely with the ownership group of the town center to perform that same attraction effort. We were out in ICSC Western in September, around the same time I arrived, and I know we're going to be planning on attracting new businesses to that site specifically and elsewhere within the city during ICSC coming up in May. That doesn't mean that that's the only time we perform those actions. Those are just 2 of the larger commercial retail conferences within the Western United States. So we're always in ongoing communications with the developer. Sometimes they'll ask us for assistance. Other times they're progressing on their own attraction efforts. And hopefully we get to the finish line in which they have a good leased project. They start with construction, et cetera.
Thank you, Kyle.
Councilmember Delgado.
Yeah, my question is for Angelica. On the entitlement process, oftentimes I hear that it's taking a long time, and there are a lot of folks that look at this. It goes from hand to hand to hand, department to department to department. Now, how does that process work? Does it go, say, for instance, you do your part on this project, you hand it over to fire, they do their part, and then it's a combined report back to them, and then they try to address all those issues and then come back to the city, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's happening, the review is happening concurrently. So application comes in and then it gets routed to the different divisions for comments, and every division is looking at the project at the same time. So again, we do have very aggressive timelines. So for first review, I believe it's a 14-day turnaround, and I'm gonna look at my cheat sheet right here. What was that? Okay.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes, thank you. So during those 2 weeks, all the divisions and departments are looking at the project together so that we don't have those delays. On our end, we do everything possible to make the process as fast and easy as possible. As Kyle mentioned earlier, it's a daunting task, especially for a developer who is not, it may be their first project, maybe they're new into development. So our job is to help them get through the process quickly, because for them, it's time and money.
And then that was my part B to that, is how long does that process usually take? And that's about 2 weeks. So that's a quick turnaround. That's pretty quick. And then we put it back on them to address all the issues. Another question is, oftentimes they do have corrections, or they have a plan check and they change something. You guys ask them to change it, and then they bring it back changed, and then you guys bring something else to them and say, well, now you got to do this. They complain that, why didn't you just tell me in the first place to fix everything? Well, guess what? They changed something which changed the project.
That affected something else.
That affected something else. So I think it's good for them to know that there may be delay on their part because of that, and not us taking a chunk out of this and then bringing it back and then taking a chunk out of that. They changed it, so now you got to fix this because it wasn't up to where it should have been in the first place.
That's correct, and that's why we highly encourage the pre-application, because during that process, we can help guide them and advise them, talk about what their plans are. Sometimes, especially for developers who may not have the experience or the years of experience in development, we'll get a property owner saying, well, I want to develop my own property and I have these ideas. So we say to them, it's best to really focus on what your ultimate goal is, because you might have various different ideas, but if in the end you are not real comfortable, or perhaps don't have the financing or the funding, and so the project when you submit is going to be completely different, like all of those are things that we try to discuss and walk them through during the pre-application process.
Thank you for that, and thank you. Great job, all you guys. That's great.
And Councilmember, if I might add, thank you to council for your support and investment within the Acela software. So over the years, we've heard this exact comment, and we've invested heavily in Acela. So we have a digital plan room that allows developers to digitally upload their documents and files. That came about as a requirement of COVID. But we were looking at doing something anyways, but COVID accelerated that as we weren't able to accept files. We had to set them aside for 72 hours and cooling off times and so forth. But with the digital plan room has been a blessing. So everything's now reviewed digitally. We don't have paper everywhere downstairs. Also, we have, with the Acela software, they're able to go in and see on the developer side what the status is of the roster and what department has or has not reviewed documents, as well as we have implemented about 2 to 3 years ago that we communicate with the developer and not just the consultants, because a lot of times what we are hearing is the consultants were saying certain things to the developers which might not have been exactly what the city was telling them. And so therefore we're trying to save developers money so that the consultants aren't able to bleed them of any funds. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I can add my perspective to this. Sometimes I see delays that are caused when we get an application. We have 30 days to deem that application complete or not complete. And sometimes staff will send them a list of items that we're required to do to make the application complete. And so sometimes there's a lot of delay from the developer in submitting those applications. And then even after the application is deemed complete, once we get the CEQA process kicks in, sometimes staff and the consultants will identify that this certain study that was just submitted and completed creates these certain impacts. Now, if we proceed with the study as is, then it's likely you're going to have to comply with these mitigation measures unless you do this. So that gives them the opportunity to go back and do, come back with another study or some alternative mitigation measure. So a lot of times the delay is caused by the applicant because they're thinking through the process as to how much money they want to incur or spend to mitigate something that's going to require an additional study. So that's where I see a lot of the delay happening, is staff giving them the opportunity to improve the project or to do another study or to come up with some alternative to a mitigation measure that has been identified as being needed in the CEQA process.
Thank you. And I have maybe one or two questions as well. In case it didn't come up, if you could briefly just talk about potentially some other factors in these development equations that could change or alter the standard timelines of the development and entitlement process, such as potential litigation with things like CEQA, for example, that sometimes come up even after projects are approved by the council, or even extensions that sometimes developers will request for various reasons on their own. And maybe if you could speak to the limitations of extensions. So if you would like to speak on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, there are various factors that may cause delays. You know, I think Kyle mentioned a bit about it. Sometimes it's market forces, sometimes it's funding, sometimes the developer will, you know, think that they've lined up their finances and have all the capital ready to go. And then, you know, the price of lumber increases, and so now that's going to be a factor in their project. If a project is entitled, the entitlement is good for 3 years. If they are already in building permit issuance, but they haven't, or you know, plans have been approved, but they haven't pulled their building permit, those plans are good for 180 days. They could request both through planning and building extensions of time. And so oftentimes we will grant those because we want to see the projects to come to fruition. Yeah.
Thank you. And then my last, it's more of a comment, not so much a question. But obviously, just want to say thank you for even, you know, with the various macroeconomic factors that we're having to deal with, headwinds, tailwinds, and the quickly changing economy with, you know, technological innovation, creative destruction, you know, artificial intelligence, for example, and how that's uprooting so many different industries. You know, our incentives, right? The city has done an amazing job of creating these programs like, you know, Hire MoVal, for example, or other incentives through our Moreno Valley utility. And so that's something that I know it's come up in conversations over the years, but it's been a while since we've kind of really opened the hood on that and looked at what are some proven use cases throughout the country and even internationally of what some of these other municipalities and jurisdictions are doing, whether it's allocation of funds or even things that don't require funding, to further incentivize businesses to try to attract them and put us at an even greater competitive advantage to even surrounding cities or other regions. So, you know, that's something that I'll kind of like plant that seed. I know you're constantly looking at those opportunities, but I think I would love for us to really take a deeper look at what are some other new programs that we could potentially implement here in the city to attract more businesses and attract the type of businesses that maybe we're trying to focus in on as well. So not really a question, just more of a comment to kind of leave that with you all. So I'll look to my colleagues again to see if there are any other questions or comments. I don't see any more at this time, so thank you. Thank you once again for the presentation. And we will go ahead and look for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
We do, Mayor. Thank you. Christopher Baca?
Good evening again. Kind of sounds like an alternate reality here when it comes to the big projects, as far as them complying and going through the process. What exactly is requirements for these big projects that nothing has happened. Some of them have even gone through the wayside and have been reinstated after 10, 15 years. As far as the Aquabella one is concerned, I don't see nothing going on there. WLC, from what I understand, it's flood control that's doing the work. And you got Skechers #3 going in, but as far as the WLC, anything else, they just move a little here and move a little there. According to the whole presentations we're seeing here, it doesn't make sense. That's not happening. It's totally alternate reality here, what you're talking about and the reality of these projects. I also have gone on the websites to see if we see any updates, and the only thing on there is in process. That's all, in process. And it's been decades, it's been years, and the only thing you see is in process. So again, alternate reality, what's going on here? Why is these developments not held to what you're specifically claiming to be doing? So are you lying? Are you making this up? What? I don't understand exactly what's going on here. On another note, I was scanning through YouTube and came across the San Jacinto Fault area. Literally, the fault goes through the corner of Ironwood and Theodore. And literally on top of that house right there where the tanks are. So, God, please. Anyhow, that area along the foothills, and then it goes out toward Ritchie Canyon and down Gilman Springs. What came to mind was Tornado Alley. Why in those states, Tornado Alley, all those, Texas, all those, they continue building, mobile homes, these cheap homes, when they're the direct path of tornadoes. This is the same thing with the upcoming Gilman Hills project that's literally on top of the San Jacinto Fault. That's insanity for the city to even consider annexing that area and building homes and businesses and stuff literally on top of the San Jacinto Fault. It's total insanity. It'll never happen, but my point is, how foolish are you? You've been sold the bridge. Now you're going to be...
Mayor, that concludes all of public comments for this item.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will go ahead and move into our next item, which will be a presentation given by our police chief, Sarah Mack, Captain Sarah Mack. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Captain.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, and community members. Tonight I will present the Moreno Valley Sheriff Station 2025 Annual Report. Also, in the interest of transparency, I have also included a brief update addressing some public questions regarding the use of certain public safety technologies. First, I'd like to introduce our command staff. In 2025, we welcome 2 new members to the leadership team, Lieutenant Johnson and Lieutenant Harding, who are pleased to serve the station and the community within the patrol operations. They join a team of 7 experienced and dedicated lieutenants committed to public safety in Moreno Valley. Throughout 2025, the Moreno Valley Station contract provided 178 sworn personnel and 54 classified personnel. That staffing supported divisions including administration, clerical services, patrol, investigations, special teams, traffic enforcement, CBAT, and a community service unit. Each of these units played an important role in supporting our mission of public safety and serving the community. This staffing level allowed us to provide effective law enforcement services. However, as the city continues to grow, additional personnel and resources would further strengthen our ability to meet the increasing service demands. In 2025, the Moreno Valley Station handled nearly 117,000 calls for service, averaging about 320 calls per day. These calls range from emergencies and crimes in progress to quality of life concerns. This graph displays the Part 1 crimes, which include homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, motor vehicle theft, larceny, and arson. Compared to 2024, homicide, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, and vehicle theft all decreased, while theft, rape, and arson showed an increase. With the purpose of reducing crime in all categories, we constantly monitor these statistics closely to identify trends and strategically deploy resources, including specialized teams that focus on the prevention of and investigation of burglaries, robberies, and major thefts, while we use county-wide special teams to assist with complex investigations such as homicide and vehicle theft rings. Gun violence remains a serious concern for every community. Our station maintains a zero-tolerance approach, focusing on prevention and strong prosecution. In 2025, deputies removed nearly 300 firearms from the streets. This graph display shows a 47% reduction in reported shooting incidents between 2023 and 2025. Reflecting a steady downward trend in gun-related incidents. Most incidents reported, as seen by the bottom graph, should fall under the Penal Code Section 246.3, which involves the negligent discharge of a firearm and often does not involve other violent crimes. In 2025, the station reduced response times across all priority levels. Calls are dispatched on a priority system. Priority 1 being the most important priority, which is typically calls that are an immediate threat to life or property, while priority 2 is lesser, 3 is lesser, and 4 typically are calls that are past calls. The station has reduced response times across all priority levels, strengthening public safety and investigative effectiveness. Higher priority calls will always receive immediate attention. However, we have also worked to improve service at the lower priority level. Priority 4 calls wait times have decreased by 24%. Priority calls are dispatched based off of the circumstances. The priority 4 calls get overlooked over and over and over throughout the day when deputies are pulled to respond to priority 1 calls. This leaves a high weight for the priority 4 calls, which are calls that are past crimes that have occurred and don't have the same urgency. However, I fully understand that to the person calling the police, that is in fact a high priority to them. So to assist with this, we expanded our use of community service officers who can respond to non-emergency calls and investigations. They are highly qualified to do certain investigations, and what that does, it allows patrol deputies to remain in service to respond to urgent priority 1 calls. This allows us to address the higher priority calls while still utilizing different resources to address the lower priority calls, and significantly, according to the stats, by 24% throughout the last year for the priority calls to decrease the wait times. Our investigations bureau includes 12 experienced investigators and master investigators who handle complex follow-up investigations. The Bureau also includes specially trained deputies who focus on cases involving domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual predator and registrant compliance. These deputies work closely with victims, families, prosecutors, and partner agencies to ensure that sensitive cases are handled thoroughly and with the care that they deserve. In 2025, our Investigations Bureau handled 859 cases, including robbery, burglary, assault, rape, fraud, and missing persons. Many of these investigations required extensive evidence collection, and coordination with agencies outside our jurisdiction and coordinated with multiple jurisdictions. Our special enforcement team, or our SET team, is one of the station's most productive units. They focus on high crime areas, violent offenders, and organized criminal activity, while also monitoring emerging crime trends. SET also worked closely with local businesses and apartment communities that have experienced ongoing theft, crime, and vagrancy. Through these targeted operations and relationship building, the team has helped restore stability in areas throughout the city. In 2025, our SET team reported 286 criminal filings, 231 search warrants served, 71 weapons seized, 370 pounds of narcotics seized, 67 pounds of fentanyl seized, and $1.6 million in recovered stolen property. Our traffic enforcement unit operates 7 days a week and includes motorcycle enforcement deputies, collision investigators, and commercial vehicle enforcement. In 2025, the unit issued over 11,000 citations, investigated 8 fatal traffic collisions, 664 injury traffic collisions, and made 288 DUI arrests. They also conducted 41 targeted safety operations and quality of life operations, which included DUI driver's license checkpoints, DUI saturation patrols, distracted driving enforcement, motorcycle safety, bike and pedestrian safety, traffic safety presentations in schools, and Know Your Limit campaigns. And the majority of the quality of life and traffic safety operations were done on OTS grants at no cost to the city. We also expanded our capabilities with 3 new BMW motorcycles, a Ram 2500 commercial enforcement truck, a DUI enforcement trailer, which was funded by the OTS grant at no cost to the city, and deployed additional radar speed trailers to be set up throughout the area in high-speed areas. These resources allowed the traffic enforcement unit to remain proactive, visible, and effective in addressing roadway safety while responding to the evolving traffic needs of the community. Our Community Behavioral Health Assessment Team, or CBAT, consists of 3 teams. This year we got up to fully staffing our 3 teams. Consisted of pairing a deputy sheriff with a behavioral health clinician from Riverside University Healthcare System. They respond to individuals experiencing mental health crisis and provide access to appropriate resources. In 2025, our CBAT teams responded to 1,260 mental health calls and assisted patrol deputies with over 540 additional related incidents. Our homeless outreach team, or the HOT team, expanded in 2025. They now provide 2 deputy sheriffs and 1 community service officer that are assigned full-time. The team responds to concerns from residents and businesses while proactively contacting individuals experiencing homelessness. Working with city partners, the team visited 753 locations, offered services 778 times, and made 436 arrests related to criminal activities. My favorite. Our Community Services Unit hosted and participated in nearly 170 community events last year, including Shop with a Cop, our famous Trunk or Treat, Holiday Cheer, the Christmas Parade, and the Public Safety Expo. These events help build partnerships and relationships between deputies and the community we serve. That completes the 2025 annual report. So I'd like to touch on some community concerns related to our growing technology, starting with Flock. So I would like to address a technology that has been an important investigative tool for law enforcement agencies across the country and including here in Moreno Valley. That technology is the Flock automated license plate reader system. Like many new technologies used in public safety, the use of Flock cameras has generated questions and concerns from members of the public, particularly regarding privacy and how the data is used. These concerns are understandable, and transparency about these systems is very important. So I'd like to briefly explain how these systems work, how they benefit public safety, and the safeguards that are in place to protect the privacy of our residents. Currently, Flock cameras have been strategically placed at all major roadways and key entry points in the city. We actively have 229 Flock cameras deployed. These cameras help deputies quickly identify vehicles that may be connected to criminal activity. The system assists us by identifying stolen vehicles and locating suspects involved in crimes. It also has proven to be an important resource in locating lost or missing persons and even persons experiencing suicidal crisis. From an investigative standpoint, this technology provides valuable leads quickly and efficiently, allowing investigators to identify suspect vehicles much faster than traditional investigative methods. As a result, we have seen faster suspect identification, an increase in the recovery of stolen vehicles and property, and greater overall investigative efficiency. Just as importantly, the presence of these cameras acts as a strong deterrent, discouraging criminals from entering the city and committing crimes in the community. Overall, this technology has become an important force multiplier, helping our deputies and investigators solve crime more quickly while improving the overall safety of Moreno Valley. We have also taken steps to ensure that the use of this technology is responsible, transparent, and respectful of privacy. First, it is important to understand that what these cameras actually collect. Flock license plate reader cameras capture license plates and basic vehicle characteristics, such as color, make, or model of a vehicle. They do not capture personal identities, and they do not use facial recognition technology. These systems do not track individuals. Instead, it simply records vehicles that pass by the camera in public areas where there's no expectation of privacy, such as major roadways and city entry points. In many ways, it is similar to a deputy observing and noticing a license plate while on patrol in a public location. Across the system, access to the system is strictly controlled. Only trained and authorized law enforcement personnel are able to conduct searches within the database. Every search is logged and recorded, creating a record of who accessed the system and why. To ensure accountability, these entities are regularly reviewed and audited, including monthly audits conducted by a lieutenant at the station. These safeguards help ensure the system is used appropriately and only for legitimate law enforcement purposes. Additionally, all data collected is maintained by the Sheriff's Department and is retained only for limited investigation period, after which is automatically deleted in accordance with department policy. This oversight measures and strict policies are in place to prevent misuse and maintain public trust. The goal of this technology is very clear: to assist deputies in solving crimes, recovering stolen property, and protecting the community, not monitoring law-abiding citizens. When used responsibly, tools like this allow us to solve crimes faster, identify suspects more efficiently, and deter criminal activity, while still maintaining strong protections and privacy for civil liberties. Additional technology that often raises concerns is our use of drones. Over the last year, we've made significant gains in public safety by establishing a station drone team. Drones have been monumental in increasing the public and deputy safety by allowing an aerial perspective to improve coordination, help deploy appropriate resources, and increase operational efficiency. For example, this allows us to quickly locate lost or missing persons, search large areas, identify crime scenes, and make safer, faster apprehensions of suspects. Simply put, drones provide immediate overhead view and live updates to responding units, which means safer, smarter policing. We currently deploy 2 DJI Matrice 30T drones. These platforms provide high-definition video, thermal imaging, live stream capabilities, and real-time intelligence to deputies and supervisors on the ground. These tools provide us with an aerial view to see what is happening as it unfolds, especially during high-risk and rapidly evolving incidents. We also utilize 2 DJI mini drones. These compact systems provide HD video, can deploy quickly, and are especially useful in indoor searches and tight environments. Our operators must be sworn deputy sheriffs or higher in rank. They are carefully selected by station administration. Each operator is required to obtain a commercial UAS pilot's license under 14 CFR Part 107 through the Federal Aviation Administration. They must recertify with the FAA every 2 years and complete additional department-specific UAS training and safety checks. This ensures our program meets the highest professional and legal standards. All drone flights and flight paths are thoroughly tracked and documented. Every deployment is tracked to ensure proper oversight and responsible operation. This level of documentation protects against unauthorized use, reinforces transparency, and strengthens accountability at every level of the program. Drone usage is limited to responding to calls for service. The program is not used to patrol the city. When drones are in transit, the camera is directed toward the horizon in the direction of travel, not toward unrelated residents or businesses. All flight data is recorded, and any video footage or photographs are used strictly for evidence collection purposes, similar to the Sheriff's Aviation Unit. This program is governed by extensive policy development over the past 10 years to ensure responsible and lawful operation. And that concludes my presentation. Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council, thank you for your time and support, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Captain Mack. We'll go ahead and bring it back up to the dais for any council comments, questions. Councilmember Delgado.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but just comment on great job, and thank you and your staff for all you do for our city. See patrol deputies everywhere, and CBAT, and motors, and the commercial trucks. So thank you guys very much. Great job.
Thank you, sir.
I also don't have questions and just want to say thank you so much. I've done ride-alongs with the CBAT and along with your officers. It's amazing to see the caliber of officers that we have out on our streets. I want to thank you for your leadership. I know that, the way they act, it comes from the top. And also, I agree that the Community Services Department is the best. They are everywhere. They are mentoring and building our future officers, I think. So I just really shout out to all of them and actually to all of your officers and mostly to you. Thank you so much, Captain Mack.
Thank you, ma'am.
I just want to thank you, Sarah, because you went over the technology piece. It was a discussion we've had numerous times. So I appreciate you thoroughly going over that, explaining that to the public, how things are stored, where things are done, and how policing is worked in the city with the camera system. So I appreciate you for bringing that forward. I also want to thank you for pointing out all of the different programs and that we are now fully staffed with CBAT, which was always a concern because we were always operating at about 75%. So again, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Captain Mack, for the great presentation, all the detailed programs that the sheriff's departments offer. I do have one question. Due to the surge in ICE activity last year, did the sheriff department see, based on the annual report, an administrative burden due to this activity? And was the calls of service from certain communities, did you see an impact there or a change in those calls of service?
If you're referring to a rise in the crime rate, according to the stats, everything has gone, most things have gone down. As far as ICE immigration enforcement, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, if due to the immigration enforcement, there was change in you know, how the policing or anything that you had to change administratively because of that activity.
No, we had no involvement in any kind of enforcement, so we had no change. As far as anything that directly affected us, there was nothing substantial or even noticeable. It was pretty much on our end. I understand the impact to the community, but as far as our policing or how we handle our services, there was no change.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then to just kind of close this one out before we move into public comment, I also just want to say thank you. Love to see, always the data, right? I talk about data all the time, so love to see the progress that has been made through the investments that this council and the staff have made over the past several years. Always a good thing to see the various types of crime decreasing and response times improving. So hats off to you and your department for getting that done. And also, you made a comment that you love the community events. We love them as well, especially seeing the explorers, those young explorers out at events and all that, representing the department and the city very well. So hats off to them. And then lastly, just a comment to kind of leave this with you. I'm sure it's already on your radar, but when we talk about the 602 letters or no trespassing, I believe back in 2024, it was SB 602 that made some changes. One of them was in regards to requiring these letters to be notarized and making it in some ways more difficult to get these letters. I believe this year, I don't know exactly where it is in the process, but I think it's SB 468. That's a new one being proposed that will hopefully help alleviate and clarify some of those things. So just wanted to leave that with you in case it wasn't on your radar, but I'm sure it already is. So that'll conclude my comments.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So now we will go ahead and go to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests?
We do not, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So with that, we will go ahead and move to item F4, which is our fourth and final item for a fire department update. And at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to our fire chief, Jesse Park.
Thank you. Get plugged in for our IT guys. Sitting for a while. It's better to stand up. Yep. Great. Sorry, that's my screensaver. That was not in the city limits, thankfully. That was JPA. Okay, well, good evening. I'll be presenting on a range of fire department updates. This presentation will focus mostly on the operations side, not OEM or fire prevention. I want to start with last year's calls for service. 24,545 incidents were generated within city boundaries in calendar year 2025, which is a lot, but often we send more than one piece of equipment to the same call. So a more complete picture is the total responses for all the equipment, which was 33,064. That averages out to just over 90 times per day. Your 9 pieces of equipment are dispatched to an emergency. And a note on the call statistics, as part of our cooperative fire agreement, we pay for every call that is dispatched. So it's very important that every call is correctly attributed to the right jurisdiction, even though we may be going to another jurisdiction. We're not going to pay for that call. So sometimes you'll see a small discrepancy in the numbers from one report to another, but those discrepancies will always be minor compared with the whole. For instance, last year our equipment went to 33,543 calls. Once everything is reconciled, our actuals may go up or down slightly. Just so if you see on a city manager's report, it's off by a couple numbers, it's really kind of the bulk. Not to blame the city manager, it's our fault. This is how the call types break down. The vegetation fires, structure fires, other fires. As you can see, medical emergencies are still the number one thing that we go to. Quite a few hazmats. And then other calls are all those things. You have ringing alarms, and you have public service assists, you know, so call to help grandma up off the floor. That's kind of all gets lumped into there. The trend from 2021 to 2026 is an increase in 2.62%. So this is for unique incidents generated in the city and not the multi-equipment response, right? If we extrapolate that out, we expect the city to generate over 25,000 unique incidents by 2029. So what is the strategic plan to meet the 2029 expected need of 25,000 plus calls? Simply put, you've given us the tools to make the necessary increases with the adopted budget, the CSD, the DIF, and Measure U. We'll need more apparatus. We'll need to update our existing stations to make room for the new apparatus and personnel, and consider new stations based on the expected growth. But also I'll present some new strategies to improve some efficiency as well. In order to accomplish our plan, we need to place orders early. As you can see, fire apparatus are taking longer and longer to build, especially the ladder trucks, which can take up to 4 years. If you think that that's excessive, you are absolutely right. In fact, things have gotten so bad that on September 10th of 2025, the Senate held a hearing. At the hearing, Senators Josh Hawley, Andy Kim, and Elizabeth Warren chastised the manufacturers, calling on them to reverse their outrageous price increases and painfully long delays for new fire engines and ladder trucks. Senator Hawley said, before, a new fire engine order took between 6 months and a year to get delivered. Today, those orders take 2 years on the low end and 4 years on the high end. Lawmakers from both parties were not convinced by the CEO's explanations. In a nutshell, smaller companies were bought out and this consolidation led to a monopoly. Currently, there are several class action lawsuits allegedly price fixing, not only against the corporations that manufacture the fire equipment, but also the private equity firms that are playing a part in this issue. Currently, Moreno Valley is not part of any lawsuit, but there are some here in Southern California. And how much are we talking about? $2.5 million per truck, which is more than a double from a decade ago. But if you remember this picture from the past, we just cannot reach the tall buildings without them. You know, that's the firefighters on the ladder that's on the engine. The engine's only so big, so we have to have these trucks. That's why we need to, and as we continue to grow out, we need more trucks. So it's kind of it's something that goes along with Kyle's presentation. It's part of our economic growth strategy. We can't provide insurance to businesses if we don't have the correct protection in place. What can we do about it? Not a lot, really. Really, it's about communicating our needs and concerns to those who can make a difference. Some things I would ask of council is to support public safety budgets and then leverage your influence as leaders of the community. What do I mean? Well, the only silver lining of waiting 3 to 4 years to get a truck is we don't have to pay for it till it's delivered, okay? And we don't pay for the staffing till people are on it. But if we're running 2-year budgets and it takes 4 years to get a truck, then we need to ensure that we're supporting the public safety budgets through the wait time so that we can have people to staff it when it gets here. We ask for the staff about a year to year and a half out, so we need your support on that. And also, you have influence with the County Board of Supervisors and the state legislature. Continue to tell them to fund public safety, support the governor's budget when it includes the necessary public safety, which it did this year. And additionally, please speak city to city to ensure that our neighbors are also increasing their public safety budgets, because the increase in calls is happening to everybody at about the same pace. And since all of our fire equipment goes across neighboring borders, we want to ensure that everyone is growing their fire departments at kind of an equal pace. Another thing is that the county fire is holding many workshops that we hope you will provide input to for this standards of coverage study. This was contracted to Citygate, and it will help provide a strategic plan for the county and also the cities if we participate with them. There will be community input, city manager input, and council input, asking everyone what do they expect from their fire department. And then this will go to the Board of Supervisors as a roadmap, a strategic plan for the future. I'm not naive, though, when we're talking about budgets. You know, fire trucks are essentially a one-time cost, but the staffing is ongoing, and it keeps going up, right? The city and the county and the state are adding positions. That's good, but the bottom line goes up. I believe there's real effectiveness in cooperative fire protection using CAL FIRE staffing. It's very financially responsible versus funding your own city to fire department, and I'll show you why. Cal HR is required by law to perform compensation studies, and the 2025 study showed that the total compensation of the state firefighter classifications are below the average of the 20 fire departments reviewed for the comparison, and the simple base pay comparison lagged by an average of 76%. However, when factoring in the total compensation, the lag dropped to 26.9%. Also, the state contributed less to employee retirement and health benefits than the jurisdictions surveyed. And it's important to recognize that state firefighters are scheduled to work more hours than the surveyed local fire departments. So costs will keep going up, but in essence, your firefighters work more hours for less pay than their contemporaries, and yet we feel we're still providing a very superior service because of our bulk and our ability to really usher in all those services, those extra services that are there. And the link is there if you want to see this study. It goes through it. Okay. We talked about our calls and what our plan is to do it, also some of the challenges that come with it, but I also want to introduce some strategies for efficiency. You know, if you want to get fit, right, you can put on some muscle, but you can also lose weight, okay? And what we've been doing when our calls go up year after year is we add muscle, right? We add equipment, we add staffing, but you just can't bulk up forever. At some point, you have to lose the weight, and more efficient use of resources is our way of cutting some of that weight. We have taken a deep dive into the calls we're running to find out how we can be more efficient. 85% of our responses are medical emergencies, but not all emergencies require the same response or care. What we are focused on is getting the right resources to the right patient with the right amount of urgency, okay? So for decades, our fire EMTs and paramedics, we only have one option. Someone calls 911, fire engine goes, we assess them, and then either they go to the ER or they stay where they're at. That was the only option. That has severely overwhelmed the system across the entire country. And we need to make changes. But the changes must come from collaborating with many groups: public health, the local EMS agency, EMD, the legislature, the various doctor associations that write the rules for paramedics. And there's more, there's plenty more. But we have partnered with those groups, and I think that we're moving in the right direction. So using a multi-year plan, which isn't fully completed yet, we have made some significant improvements, and truly, I would say that we're at the forefront on much of this. I have to hand it to our county leadership. They really are making significant strides that you just aren't seeing in other jurisdictions. And you know, all of us, we talk to our contemporaries, right? You know, fire talks to fire and police talks to police, and when we tell them what we're doing here, they're really impressed because we really are on the forefront of some of this. So here's the things that I'm going to review: learning from data, emergency medical dispatching, optimizing standard responses, and then creating partnerships. So learning from data is combining dispatch information with the electronic, so 911 dispatch information with the electronic patient care reporting, the EPCRs. Those are the ones that the firefighters are doing on the ground to document. We're actively collecting data on every type of emergency, including the acuity, procedures performed, medications given, the resources that were responded, how long they were committed, what time, where did they go, what did they do when they were on scene, and then we use this in conjunction with the dispatch data to do that analytics that's available to us now with these big data sets. What dispatch information am I talking about is called emergency medical dispatch. So someone calls 911 and then they ask a series of questions by the call taker to get a handle on this situation. Why are they calling 911? The EMD dispatcher can provide pre-arrival instructions such as bleeding control or opening the airway, CPR, and then continued questioning results in what's called a response code. More serious problems result in quicker, more robust responses than the less serious problems. But probably our biggest achievement is becoming what's called an accredited dispatch center. The Paris ECC received accreditation from the International Association of Emergency Dispatch in 2024. And they do this by showing a very consistent high level of accuracy with this dispatch and EMD information. We're the 340th one in the entire world to be accredited, 13th in California, and we're the first and only in Riverside County, and the only one in the CAL FIRE system. So it was a big lift. You know, they worked for several years to accomplish this. But this has allowed us for what's called differential dispatching, and access to nurse navigation, and I'll talk about that in a minute. This is one of the things that it did. By becoming an accredited dispatch center, it lets us review and optimize our response codes. And doing this, we were able to save 3,991 hours of fire engine commitment time countywide. So in other words, on calls that we would have normally required 2 pieces of equipment to go, we were able to adjust that, send 1 piece of equipment, making other pieces of equipment available for that 3,000 hours. We're also able to change the level of response for several call types to ambulance only, and this removed 4,930 responses from our fire engines, trucks, and squads countywide. This is based on 2025 response data in comparison to 2023 and 2024. We were only able to do this because of our accreditation, and it's kind of that example of losing weight in the system, right? Differential dispatching is a system that sends a selective response based on severity rather than sending on a maximum response to every emergency. So what type of selective responses are available now? This is where we had to create those partnerships with some of those different agencies that I was talking about. We used to be stuck always sending a fire engine, lights and sirens to all our medicals, and the patient could only end up in the emergency room. But now, with the accreditation and differential dispatching, we're able to employ some alternate services. So AMR is the county's ambulance provider, right? And GMR is their patient company, or parent company. By partnering with GMR, we have been able to use what's called nurse navigation. Nurse navigation provides alternate healthcare destinations other than the emergency room, such as urgent care, behavioral health, and even pharmacy pickup. We're able to use third-party commercial transport systems, such as Medivans, but also Uber and Lyft. And this allows our limited ALS transports to remain available for the critical calls, diverting low acuity calls away from the ER. But it does have limitations. For instance, we have to be able to talk directly to the patient. We can't have it third party, right? You can't call for your mom because then we can't ask those critical questions. And patients have to be cooperative, right? That's the other thing. Sometimes they're not. Nurse navigation started in September 2025. So we're still gathering a full year's worth of data, but soon I'll be able to provide a pretty good impact here. And I do have a slide on what we have so far for the last 6 months. So nurse navigation, that's for people who call 911 who need to go somewhere, but probably not to the ER in an ambulance, right? Okay, that's what that's for. RIVCO 1, this pilot program, is for people who call 911 who need help, but they may not need to go anywhere, at least not right away. They call 911, they need help, but what they usually need are either licensed clinicians, social workers, community healthcare workers, substance abuse, or mental health experts. In the past, we were unable to share our dispatch information and the EPCR because of HIPAA, right? And other regulations that are kind of out there that these control agencies have a control over. But we've been working through these control agencies to get the right information to the partners. And this works especially well for repeat 911 callers, right? Somebody that's calling over and over and over again, there's a reason why they're calling. What is it? We are not providing the right service, obviously. So out of this, a third of those offered these types of services are now accepting them. So it is making an impact. So this is the Nurse Nav. Let's look at Nurse Nav affected Moreno Valley here in the first 6 months since we did it. So started in September of 25. Now we're in March of 26. We were able to send 200 calls to nurse navigation. Out of those 200, 153 turned out to still need transport to the hospital by AMR. However, the majority of those were BLS. And so either our fire engines were able to be available more quickly, or potentially they didn't go at all. 28 times the patient was able to handle their issue with self-care, meaning they stayed at home or made an appointment for a later date. 12 of the calls were able to get a ride, either by a family member or Uber, to the urgent care. And then there were 6 times that the patient was guided to virtual care using a teledoc. So during the 6-month period, our firefighters ran approximately 11,000 medical aids, right? So Nurse Nav has not really made a large, noticeable difference yet, but it's a start to a program that really needed to take effect. And we hope that there's a cascading effect that over time does really yield some good results. And I think if you kind of think about those types of cascading effects, you'll come to some conclusions on your own, how this really could help the community over time and keep people from getting those emergency room transport and hospital bills, right? That's kind of the goal. Okay, so to recap, the right resource, ALS or BLS response, ambulance only, or nurse navigation. To the right patient, accredited ECC performs a detailed call triage, find out exactly what the issue is. Then with the right amount of urgency, immediate code 3 fire department, immediate or delayed fire department, right? We can go without lights and sirens. We can also go to your house that way. Non-urgent ambulance response, nurse navigation, telehealth, Uber, or just get them a prescription, figure out what's going on. The goal is to keep our fire engines and ALS resources available for the true emergencies, that they're the only ones that are capable of handling. We go to a lot of things that somebody else who has a qualified background could probably handle. How the system has been built. So to wrap it up, Moreno Valley, it's busy, it's growing, so is everybody else. We need more fire equipment and firefighters, but there are challenges. We're working through the challenges and planning ahead. We do need your advocacy on this. Even with strong advocacy and steady planning, we still need to evaluate and improve our own service delivery, bulk up, then lean out, right? And we are making those improvements using data-driven decisions and building partnerships, continuing to innovate, but always focusing on what's most important, you know, our customers, our taxpayers. That's the end of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I will move down in case there's public comment.
Thank you very much, Chief Park. Appreciate that presentation. And we'll go ahead and bring it back to the dais for council comments or questions.
No questions, just comment. Jesse, very, very good, Chief. We appreciate you and your team. I love the analogy of bulking up and losing weight. I love that because it's true even with the police department or the sheriff's department, bulking up with deputies, but trimming the fat or getting technology, and that helps kind of lose the weight, right? So great job for our public safety partners in our city, and great job on that presentation.
Sure.
Jesse, just want to say great presentation, and you definitely have advocates here, you know, for fire protection and all the needs of the fire department. So thank you, and great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that, sir.
Same. I just want to echo my colleagues and say that The service that you provide and the leadership that you provide to those who work under you is exceptional. We love the multifaceted approach of getting more services for our dollars. So thank you very much, and thank you for being on the hot seat for the last month and taking it in stride. We appreciate all of your time and effort for the city of Moreno Valley. So thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and agreed with everything that has been said. Hats off to you all. We can't thank you enough for the work that you and your department do to keep all of us safe. And I just wanted to just mention it to give them the highlight as well, because this potentially, if it not already isn't, it could be and probably should be a partnership with the recently completed and open Raven Health Center over at Vista del Lago High School. Very impressive. They just did the ribbon cutting, was it last week? And these students, these high school students, just the wealth of knowledge that they have at such a young age, and now to have a pathway or several pathways at the high school level at Vista del Lago for future EMTs, for nurses, so many different pathways that potentially so many of them will end up working within your department. Just so exciting. And one of the things that they brought up was how they can partner more with the CERT program. So I don't know if you want to share anything about that, but they were really excited about, how do we get involved in that program and get more volunteers into that program so that we can be better prepared for any kind of emergency situations or anything like that. So just wanted to highlight them and the great work that they're doing over at Vista del Lago High School. But that's all I have for this item. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. And we will go ahead and go to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests?
We do not, Mayor.
All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and move into item G. Seeing there is no further business on our study session agenda, we will go ahead and adjourn this study session at 8:18 p.m. Have a good night.